This is the Wowcube, a Rubik's Cube-like fidget toy on steroids with no less than 24 OLED screens, which run a variety of custom games that require you to physically shake, twist, tap and tilt the cube sections around. We've glimpsed it as a work in progress at CES for over 3 years now, and it never fails to make heads turn, but finally it's a real product, and we have one to play with. I'm James Bruce, you're watching MakeUseOf.com reviews, and join me as I fidget my way through this cuboid tesseract-esque thing to find out if this is in fact a fun, clever tech toy that warrants the entertainment system label, or if you'd be better off with an actual Nintendo. Okay, let's break this review into 3 main parts, links in the description if you want to skip. Hardware, gaming, and then other uses. So, hardware. In truth, the Wowcube taken straight out of the box is a little less wow. In fact, it's pretty boring looking, a shiny black plastic cube that loves fingerprints until you twist it to turn it on, at which point the 24 tiny OLED displays jump into life. It's probably the most unique and innovative gadget I've ever reviewed here, but it's not only visually stunning, the complex mechanics and electrical wizardry that go into making this are themselves quite the accomplishment. Okay, I'm going to get nerdy for a bit, but you'd be forgiven for thinking there's a central core in here with the battery and the CPU, that sort of thing. But in fact, the center is just a piece of plastic to facilitate the modules twisting around. In fact, we got sent a spare one. Instead, every individual module is a computing unit with its own separate battery and processor. They then communicate and hand off interactions to each other using these ball-bearing slip disk type system on each side of the module. And this is perhaps one of the first examples of actual physical distributed computing in one device that I've ever seen, and it's technically remarkable. I'll just note here that we received a prototype unit with press kit, which included a carry case, silicon bumpers, charging dock. I'm not 100% sure what comes with the final package. It might just be the charging dock with the case and bumpers as optional extras, but it's worth checking that out before you buy it. Also, this is a prototype unit that we have, and while I did experience some quirks and bugs, restarts required, not everything is ready yet. The hardware side of things is pretty complete, just a little polish needed on the software. However, for the sake of transparency, some hardware issues they've already noted are battery life, fingerprints, screen brightness not high enough, and speakers not loud enough. And those have all been fixed on the final model, or so we've been told. So just bear that in mind, this isn't quite final production hardware. So using the Wowcube takes a little bit getting used to, but the first thing you need to know is that to turn it on, you just twist it. Turning it off is a little more complex. You want to go back to the main menu, highlight the power button and double tap to power down, but turning it on is easy. From there you select the app or game you want by twisting the cube around and tilting it between the faces. Then you double tap to load that app. Though, as I said, this is a prototype, and sometimes for me the double tap interactions were not recognized reliably. You should also go ahead and download the Wowcube app, which can then connect over Bluetooth and remotely manage your Wowcube, allowing you to download new games and apps, change settings, customize things, etc. To charge the device, you should use the supplied 5V 3A charger and gently pull apart one side, then slot it into the charging base. In terms of battery life, we got about 2 to 2.5 hours with one of the more sedate games. But the final model, again, is expected to have more. So, gaming. Out of the box you have about 10-15 games, but there'll be more available on the Wowcube App Store at launch. You might think you're familiar with some of these, but you should know that you can't just sideload existing Android games on there and expect them to do, well, anything at all. This is such a unique method of interaction and display that every app on here is a completely custom thing. In fact, it doesn't even run on Android. It's a custom OS. I mean, it needs to be because of the whole modular design, distributed computing paradigm going on. But you'll find a complete SDK available to download and try out some of the code if you want. Some of these apps are branded existing titles, but even then, most of the game dynamics are really quite different to what you know already or might expect. That said, some of the available apps at the time of testing are very similar. You've got a classic Rubik's Cube, a Rubik's Cube variation where tiles subdivide, and a butterflies variation where you have to match the wings, so not just colour but orientation too. Then you have some pipes style games or racing where your car or ladybug needs to follow the track and collect all the bits. Finally, you have sort of match 2 style games of 2048 or similar with combining candy instead. Then you have this cut the rope adapted version, a breakout style block shooting game. Now personally, I don't know if it's because I'm just hopeless at solving Rubik's Cubes or I hate puzzles in general, but honestly I found most of the games to be utterly and completely frustrating and stressful. Absolutely no idea what's going on. What are you supposed to do? Put them all together? What, while they're all spinning around? Are you kidding me? I ain't doing that. Are any of the games compelling enough to make me want to pick up and play again? The 2048 numbers game is pretty zen, so maybe. But this is going to vary a lot by your own gaming preferences. My wife seemingly loves puzzles much more than I do, and I ended up having to pry the thing out of her hands to get it back for review. And she regularly drains the battery in a single sitting. My son is fascinated by it too, so again, personal preference there. If you enjoy puzzles and casual gaming, then you're probably going to like this. If, however, your idea of casual gaming is playing Elden Ring in your lounge pants or onesie, this isn't going to be for you. You'll be equally frustrated as I was. So, on to other uses. The gaming credentials are solid, and it can be a compelling toy for some, but what else can it actually do? The Wowcube isn't just for gaming, but it is very early days yet, so a lot of the other features aren't fully fleshed out yet, or simply haven't been conceived yet. We just don't know what could be developed for this, because right now all we have are some first-party tech demos. The timer app, for instance, is a demonstration of precisely how bad this twisty interface can be when paired with certain tasks. Each face of the cube is tied to a different amount of time, so there's a face for 10 minutes, 15 seconds, 1 minute, etc. And turning to that face, then twisting either side, will supposedly increase or decrease the timer, but no matter how many times I tried to set a specific number of minutes, I just could not get the right number. Maybe the app was buggy, or maybe it's just a terrible interface, compared to, say, lifting my watch and saying, "Hey Siri, set a timer." Alright, let's twist that way. Minus 15 seconds. Nope, that added a minute on. This just isn't how timers should be interfaced with. So call it a tech demo, whatever, that's one I'll be uninstalling. There's a choice of screensavers which will kick in when you put it down for a moment, and I'm quite partial to the Matrix one. Then there's a widgets app which covers every screen in a deluge of information like stock prices and weather and photos. Unfortunately in our prototype unit that's not yet customizable, so it's of limited utility. Though as you can see it does look neat and seems like it could be a really useful way of presenting a large amount of information at your fingertips when it's sat on charge on your desktop perhaps. Then we have a nightlight or the Bubbles app, which is basically a variation on the screensaver really. You can twist it to get some different visualizations, all of which are pretty mesmerizing. I would, however, really like to see a sort of pulsing tesseract design, and some other obvious applications are missing, like custom photo mosaic app. Even though bizarrely there is one called Manga, which seems to be a jumbled up mix of manga panels. Perhaps you get to the next page when you've finished the cube or something. Suffice to say, it's not a particularly great way to read manga at all. So should the Wowcube be on your Christmas list? The fact that there is a paid app store that's going to be available and an SDK that anyone can download and get started programming with means that hopefully developers will continue to add more games, and the ecosystem should expand with new concepts that we can't review right now because they don't exist yet. Though of course that relies upon this thing actually taking off, and at the price of around $250 only time will tell if it's compelling enough to captivate a larger audience. The problem with adding any kind of new interaction or even display method, whether that's VR motion controllers or a twisty cube thing, is that it requires a lot of customization and a lot of work on the part of the developer to port a game from another platform. And this is a very technically complex device, not just in programming, but in entirely unique game dynamics. It's one thing to say add VR support to an existing first-person game because the paradigm is basically the same thing. You're still interacting with the world, but with real rather than fake hands. But this is so new, so different, that I fear it won't get enough support behind it. So for now, It's best if you pre-order on the basis of what you can see, not the potential that you can't see. Technologically speaking, the Wowcube is just so impressive. And I'm also wowed by the fact that they are planning to have repair kits available to buy, which appear to be a replacement module and inner core section. In fact, our review pack contained a replacement inner core and screwdriver, though I haven't attempted to pry anything apart yet. That said, the hardware itself does feel very robust. You might think that something like this is very delicate, there's a lot of moving parts and it can break easily, but that's just not the case in my experience. It feels pretty child-proof, especially once you've fitted the silicone bumpers. Anyway, thank you for tuning into this hands-on preview of the Wowcube, and I hope it showed you how interesting and unique this toy really is. Hit me up in the comments if you have more questions, or to let me know what you thought of this review and this Wowcube thing. Hit like, I would really appreciate that, and do consider subscribing for reviews of the coolest gadgetry you should know about. Thanks for watching, and until next time.